taxation. Prime Minister, a very tricky subject. Historically, taxation was, say, 10%. They say that any tax level beyond that, you get people unwilling to pay it. But we have GST of 12.5%. And then on top of that we have 19% personal income tax. And on top of that we have rates. And on top of that we have fees and charges. And so on and so forth. And other people pay other taxes. Rego, fines and defaults, penalties and so on and so forth. So it can readily add up to over 50%. Even for a poor person under, say, 20,000 a year, can easily be beyond 50% tax. Now, once upon a time I thought 100% tax would be slavery, and that anything over 50% was just far too close to that to be stomachable, that we could hardly bear it. Now, plainly enough, and this is the real tax rate I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, you know, when people think of tax, they think of the income tax. But there's business taxes and GST and other charges, petrol taxes, all manner of taxes. You add these together in the expenditure of a daily life and you get a concept called the real tax. Now, when we charge, when we have laws about credit card companies and their usurious rates of interest, in the USA that's 8%, 11%, 12%, 9%, 8%, percentages like that. Here it's as high as 23%. But they have to declare the real rate of interest. That's a requirement of the law. But here the government has a rate that is twice the rate of usury, easily, on a perfectly ordinary income. And yet we don't get any loan for it. How is it that the people can possibly bear this? I am just staggered that anything even half that is bearable by the people. Do our governments think that we are so stupid as to put up with this nonsense? Furthermore, and I thought that you know, at the 100% level or approaching it, you would get you know, this is law and good government, with freedom and liberty. Here you have, you know, beyond, you know, up to 25%, you have control and management. Control and management. And from 25 to, say, 45%, you have suppression and oppression beginning to build. And beyond that, definitely, you know, tyranny begins to grow. Tyranny and oppression and coercion. Of course, a lot of other things would happen before that. I think you would see big companies withdrawing from the country and investors leaving the country if we got to those kind of levels on a permanent basis. We must come back for all the levels of tax, especially for the poor. The first 10,000 should be tax free. At least allow the very poorest the first amount of tax free. But I see something else, actually. I see that when you get around the 50% level, and both the poorest classes, the middle classes, and now the rich are paying this kind of level, so everybody's paying that kind of level, you basically have half the country supported by the other half, which we saw in another diagram. One half of the country is paying the other half, so we are robbing Peter to pay Paul. We are literally taking in each other's washing. We're getting nowhere. And the tax rates, the real tax rate, reflects this. I now believe that the point of collapse for an economy is not the 100% mark, but you can just as easily collapse at the 50% mark. And you must withdraw rapidly from the 50% mark, below 40% within a year or two, as the real tax rate. You must have savage and severe cuts in the benefits and pensions and the allowances that people have, while cutting back on taxes as well. You must open up the economy again and give us this breathing space. This breathing space is our only remaining liberty and freedom. 10% is historically law and government, good governance, with freedom and liberty. 9%, the majority of your own money is your own. So it should be. Here, we're only asking for 10% to be, in a sense, or 60% allowed to be held in the hand of the person, just to give them a taste of what liberty and freedom of action, to start your own business with excess funds, or to control your own life and take responsibility. Because at this point, you know, there's no advantage. You may as well be in one camp or the other. And the people in the government side, who tend to tell the people on the freedom side how to run their lives and so on, they haven't got a clue as to how money is actually created, how wealth is created, how you have to make something out of almost nothing. You have to grow something, you have to plant it, you have to water it, you have to look after it, you have to harvest it, you have to distribute it and carry it. You have to do things very strongly with the items in your control. And if you fail at any of these tasks, or any aspect of this task, you don't have an income. And so you urgently watch for how your activities unfold. Whereas the people who live off tax money, be it beneficiaries, pensioners, or government servants, you know, the money just rolls in some sort of vague, abstract way. And they tend to have the thought that money grows on trees, that you just print the money, that you just sign a thing, you know, a special drawing rights, or take out another loan, or get some more credit. It is these people who run the country. Whereas in actual fact, in this picture here, a traditional picture, the people ran the country. The government just governed it. And we must separate those two ideas out again. When we have the people who believe their money is just some sort of vague fog that ends up in their bank account and they can spend it on real things, but these people know exactly, in a very crunchy, real, gritty way, what money is worth and how it's done and created and operates. And have these idiots tell us what to do is ridiculous, and to make all sorts of fiddle-faddle laws, it makes it impossible. This is not liberty, this is control freakdom to the max. It's ridiculous, it's ludicrous, it's silly, and it's now being placed upon every man, woman and child in this country. There is no one of us who is free or liberated by any of this. And now we're under stress because this whole stupid scheme collapses at this 50% point. I did once think it had to go to 100%, because you'd find people who would say, oh, such and such a country, they've got 67% real tax rate. And that used to stump me for a long time, until I thought, yes, but what countries are those? Those are countries surrounded by tax rates, like in Lithuania and Estonia and so on, with much, much lower tax rates than that, because their economies have collapsed long ago. And so they take their cheaper holidays, their cheaper booze, and their cheaper offside relationships, shall we say, in those other countries.